Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome to a Platinum Jubilee special on the money. We're celebrating the Queen's 70 years on the throne. I'm Liam Halligan, and for the next hour, we'll be talking about the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, Platty Jubes, as some are calling it, while discussing how our monarchy, one of the world's most valuable brands, helps UK businesses and the broader economy. A special celebratory on the money after the GB News headlines with Olivia Guthrie.
Thank you, Liam. Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock. Here's the latest in the GB newsroom. The Archbishop of York has thanked the Queen for staying the course during a service at St Paul's Cathedral. Members of the royal family, including Prince Charles and Camilla, were joined by dignitaries, receiving cheers from the public as they arrived and departed. Prince William and Kate were also there, along with Prince Harry and Meghan, who appeared with the Windsors for the first time since moving to the States. Her Majesty missed the event after experiencing some discomfort yesterday, and instead she watched the service on television from Windsor Castle. In other news, UK intelligence shows Russia now controls more than 90% of Luhansk in eastern Ukraine. On the 100th day of the war, the Ministry of Defence is warning Moscow could have completed control of the region in the next 2 weeks. After abandoning its assault on the capital, Kyiv, Russian forces are now focusing on the east and south of the country. Officials in Luhansk say the number of weapons provided by the West are still not enough. The US president is urging Congress to ban assault weapons and expand background checks in the wake of another mass shooting. 4 people, including 2 doctors, were killed when a gunman opened fire at a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma yesterday. Last week, a teenager shot dead 19 children and 2 teachers at a school in Uvalde. And during a racially motivated attack, 10 people were killed in Buffalo in New York. President Joe Biden says enough is enough.
Guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States of America. The #1 killer. More than car accidents, more than cancer. Over the last 2 decades, more school-age children have died from guns than on-duty police officers and active-duty military combined. For God's sake, how much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough?
Here in the UK, the Ministry of Defence has been warned it could compromise national security unless it fixes or scraps its Ajax armoured vehicle programme. A parliamentary report found it was flawed from the outset. The programme, designed to build reconnaissance vehicles for the army, has been running for 12 years at a cost of £3.2 billion, but has so far failed to deliver a single deployable vehicle. The government has confirmed it wants to ditch what it's calling overbearing EU rules about imperial measurements. It's launched a consultation which may give traders more freedom to use pounds and ounces instead of kilos and grams when selling goods in future. The Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy says a review will restore common sense to the statute book. Actress Amber Heard plans to appeal the decision that she defamed ex-husband Johnny Depp. One of her attorneys says Heard has excellent grounds for the appeal, adding there was so much evidence that was not included during the trial. Johnny Depp sued his former partner over a 2018 opinion article which his lawyers said falsely accused him of being physically and sexually abusive towards her. A jury awarded Depp over £8 million in damages. And the illustrator behind best-selling book The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse is selling some of his drawings. Sotheby's is auctioning 28 original Charlie Mackesy sketches. The ink and watercolour creations include 2 which didn't make the final cut for the book. The artist says it's a massive privilege to have his work shown by the auction house as part of a series of Jubilee exhibitions. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's get back to Liam.
And coming up on The Money today, we're celebrating the Queen's 70th Jubilee by discussing how the monarchy helps the British economy, how it helps businesses across the UK. Yes, we do spend taxpayers' money on the House of Windsor, but what we get back in terms of commerce and cash, quite a lot as it turns out. As ever, we hold a detailed discussion. Plus, GB News reporters across the country, from the East Midlands to Northern Ireland, provide us with special Jubilee-themed On The Money reports. You won't want to miss them. And everyone knows the Queen holds immense love for her corgis, those small herding dogs originating from Wales. They're now almost synonymous with the Queen as Buckingham Palace itself. We'll be hearing from the co-creators of the Corgi Cafe, who, you've guessed it, filled a cafe with corgis to celebrate the run-up to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. That's later in the show, and there may even be a few live dog appearances. As ever, I want your questions, opinions, ideas. What do you think of the issues raised in today's On The Money? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews. I'll read out some of your messages later in the show, so stay with us, because this is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and it's a special celebratory On The Money. Now, Elizabeth II is, of course, the longest reigning monarch in British history, and she's the 3rd longest reigning monarch anywhere ever. But she's gaining fast on King Louis XIV, who ruled France for 72 years, from 1643, and also King Rama IX, who, of course, was Thailand's head of state for 70 years and 6 months from just after the Second World War. So her Madge is right up there when it comes to time spent on the throne, and of course, we hope there will be many more years to come of this Elizabethan age. And yet, when it comes to global reach and recognisability, Her Royal Highness, given the amount she's travelled, how hard she's worked and the age in which she has lived, she is at the heart of a royal brand which simply has no equal. The House of Windsor's corporate brand is worth more than the likes of Nike, Coca-Cola, Disney, Microsoft. That's according to marketing experts. And the Queen herself is, of course, not only among the world's best loved and most influential people, she is by far and away the most famous woman on earth. Accounts for sovereign grants show that the monarchy cost the UK taxpayer £87.5 million during the fiscal year 2020 to 2021. That's equivalent to £1.27 per person. That covers staff and travel costs, as well as property maintenance. But Forbes magazine estimate that when you consider ticket sales for visits to official residences, tourism and income from the Crown Estate, the House of Windsor contributes for that £87.5 million, wait for it, £19 billion to the UK economy each year, far, far more than it costs. So today, in this special celebratory edition of On the Money, let us look at the contribution of the monarchy to our economy, to business, to that other hugely important intangible, our national mood, which of course feeds back into spending and investment decisions. Plenty of bang for our Buckingham Palace. You see what I did there? And that's our On the Money question today. How much does the monarchy contribute to the British economy? In the studio, who else could I ask but the Jerry Spice of On the Money? Here she is, Jasmine Birtles, MissMoneyMagpie.com herself. We're here celebrating, aren't we? Let's just talk about this a little bit. Look, whether you're a Republican or a monarchist, whatever you think of the Queen, yeah, you and I, we're financial people. We like maths, we play with spreadsheets and so on, rather than waving flags. But financially, it stacks up, right?
Well, it does, yeah. I mean, I was thinking, as you say, it's millions. It's in the millions. I've seen different amounts of money. I mean, a Republican site puts it at 345 billion. I'm not sure how they worked that out, but, you know, it depends how you look at it. But even so, when you think what kind of billions we spend on other things, the government spent 54 billion or 50-something billion bailing out RBS Bank back in,
Royal Bank of Scotland,
So if you're spending millions and you are getting billions back, and I do agree, I think we do get billions.
Yeah, I think we get billions.
Hello, yeah, it probably is worth it. Whether you think it's worth it culturally is a whole other thing. But when it comes to the business, the brand, it does do well for GB Limited, frankly.
And of course, there have been efforts made over recent years to pare back the civil list, haven't they? A lot of the excesses, there's less sort of courtiers, less what some people would describe as hangers-on.
Yeah, yes, I definitely...
We're completing each other's sentences now, aren't we, Jasmine? Now, of course, the Queen, she needs security. You know, she needs to travel, in style. She is the figurehead of our nation. We can have a debate about whether or not there should be a new Royal Yacht Britannia. But heaven knows the amount of trade deals that have been cooked up on that royal yacht over, wine and sherry with minor royals. Yeah. So, and if you got rid of the royal family, I mean, it would almost be sort of financial vandalism, wouldn't it?
It kind of would. I've heard this from American friends particularly, and it is interesting seeing your country from an outsider's point of view. I've heard from American friends, and of course they adore, they can't get enough of the royals. They said that without the royal family, there wouldn't be so much of a reason to come to Britain. There wouldn't be, Britain wouldn't be so much on the map. I'm not sure if I agree with that, in all honesty, but that's their view, certainly. I think what I would like to see, and I think quite a few people would like to see, more transparency about where this money's going, because some of it, I think, we would like to know if this particular royal is getting X amount, and a lot of people wouldn't like that particular royal, whereas everybody loves the Queen, everybody thinks she should have as much as possible. I think Princess Anne does a wonderful job, but some of the others, it would be good to know exactly where that money is going. So although I think it is worth it, we as the taxpayers need to know more exactly where that money is going so that we can have a say in it, frankly.
Well, from one On the Money regular, Jasmine Birtles, to another, let's bring in Vicky Price, who's joining us from Greece. Vicky is, of course, Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research. Vicky, great to see you in some clothes that actually reflect that there's some sun outside. It's still pretty cold in the UK for the most part. You are, of course, you spent much of your life in the UK, Vicky, as On the Money regulars will know, but you are a proud native of Greece. It's where you are now. Just give us a sense of how the royal family is viewed in a country, another European country like Greece. Tell us about the Greek newspapers and Greek television today. Are you guys covering the Platinum Jubilee?
Well, absolutely. The interesting thing is that where I'm sitting now, I'm using my computer that I brought over from London, and I'd subscribed to a particular website which gives me all sorts of news of what's happening in Greece, but also Ukraine and everything else. Well, yesterday I was just getting constant information with actual, not just pictures, but videos of what was going on in the UK. So even if one had been trying to escape it, which I haven't been, you couldn't escape it if you were here, because they were very fascinated by it all. The pomp and ceremony is really important. But remember, we're talking about Greece, which is the one country that voted in a referendum to get rid of the monarchy. And they voted to do that after the colonels. We had a dictatorship between 67 and 74. Straight after that, they voted to get rid of the royals. They might actually have tried to decide to do that slightly earlier because they were quite fed up with them. So they're not really royalists, and yet they're fascinated by what's going on. And it's also worth bearing in mind, you talked about tourism and the help that the UK economy gets because of the monarchy, and the Queen in particular, who is held in very high regard. In fact, if you look at where tourists come from, with the exception of the US, the majority of the rest, in terms of the size of the tourism interest that there is from other countries, comes from Europe. France, which no longer has a monarchy, for example, I mean, Germany and so on. And of course, the Greeks, except it's a very small country by comparison to the others.
When I was a lad, Vicky, I remember the Queen's Silver Jubilee, 25 years on the throne in 1977. I was sitting there in my Cub Scout uniform. No. Photos are available online. And back then, the Queen's late husband was known fondly as Phil the Greek. Is he seen as... Obviously, he's got very close links to the Greek royal family. He spent a lot of his early life in your wonderful country. Does that enhance the extent to which the royal family is of interest in Greece?
It's really interesting you mentioned that, because, of course, we do refer to him as a Greek prince. He's no longer with us, of course. And our ex-king, Constantine, is, of course, part of the royal family. So there have been all sorts of reports on, him being, with the rest of the family at various stages and so on. So, yes, there is an interest. And it's what I said before about us having voted to get rid of the monarchy, for a while there was quite a lot of resentment to the Greek monarchy and all the links it had with everyone else. But that has changed. So the king has been allowed to come back with the ex-king and, get some of his property back, and or at least, up to a point. So there's been a bit of a rapprochement, and there is some sort of pride that indeed Prince Philip was Greek. I mean, as we know, he was born here. I mean, he left pretty early. That's the truth. And I think his father fought also with the Greeks, with the Greek military. So, quite a considerable link there. So yes, I think part of the interest is that. But right now, for all the younger people, it's more what goes on in the UK right now. As I said, the pomp and ceremony, which really attracts people. And of course, the UK is an attraction for loads of people. The soft power that's there, the reason why all that money comes in is because people want to also visit those places. They don't come for the weather. They come for other reasons.
Too right. Too right, they don't come for the weather.
Those reasons have to do with visiting all those palaces. All those areas, the Tower of London and so on, and also all around the country where there are areas of interest which are linked to the royal family. So I mustn't forget that. It is quite important.
I can't sit in the On the Money studio with you, Jasmine, and Vicky Price joining us too, without at least having a bit of a serious discussion. I've just been writing a column for my Sunday Telegraph this weekend, comparing our economy now with 1977, with that Jubilee. It was a time then of high prices. It was a time then, the fag end of a Labour government with respect. Jim Callaghan, who was a natural communicator, losing his touch and so on. The last Jubilee was followed by a real energy price shock. You'll remember the Iranian Revolution. What I'm saying this time is I think this Jubilee will be followed in the months and years to come with a food price shock. I genuinely believe that food prices are a bigger danger now than energy prices. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't quite understand what's going on globally, but there seems to be, in this country and in America and a few other countries, a desire to suppress food production. I don't understand why, because you'd think that you'd have the opposite. So, yeah, I do
Farmers still being paid to leave stuff fallow. I mean, what's going on?
Exactly. What is going on? And I think this is a question we're going to have to be asking over the next, next few months and years. So, yeah, I do. One thing I did see, though, just recently, I saw some stats about the difference between 1952 and now. In 1952, a third of people's wages were spent on food.
That's right.
And now it's 11%. So
a lot less, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we are to go back to the way things should be, or at least used to be. I don't know, but I'm not keen on spending a third of my salary, or frankly, on food. I'm used to paying, 10%. That's where I'd like to stick it. But perhaps it has to go higher. I don't know. We have to see.
Jasmine, great to have you with us. And indeed, Vicky Price, enjoy your time in Greece, and we look forward to having you back on the programme soon here in London, Vicky. Now, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee will bring many companies around Britain a much-needed boost, but for one business in Northern Ireland, the timing for its royal warrant is extra special. Our intrepid Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie, went along to find out more.
Ulster Carpets is a firm that tends not to shout about its achievements. Still a family-run firm after 85 years. MD Nick Coburn attributes its success to a number of factors.
We've always invested continually, and we've always tried to be the best. It's that continual investment in new machinery and innovation, but also in people. We've been in this area here and 85 years, and we have some of the most fantastic people working for us. So that combination of people, progression, innovation, and always wanting to be the best and keeping a step ahead now makes this is the largest Axminster carpet factory in the world. So, we feel proud that what everybody has done here has led to a really fantastic situation.
Just over a week ago, it became one of a select few in Northern Ireland with a royal warrant.
That means so much, because it really reflects the really hard work that all our people do, and I think reflects the fact that we're a UK manufacturer. We're really proud, particularly at this time coming up to the Queen's Jubilee, Platinum Jubilee, just so proud to have one of the 3 companies in Northern Ireland to have the royal warrant.
Attention to detail is never forgotten, and quality is at the very centre of this firm's reputation. Ulster Carpets is a real UK manufacturing success story. Not only is it family owned, it's the largest Axminster plant in the world. It creates jobs in its mills in Wakefield and Dewsbury because it sources its wool from inside the UK.
I think companies like ourselves have really gone up the value-added chain, where it's not a commodity. We're bringing something to people's rooms, people's casinos, people's hotels, which enhances their room. They see the value in that, and it's really working closely with particularly an international market. 80% of our product goes outside of the UK, but all of the product is made here, not just in Portadown, which is headquarters, but we are a cradle-to-grave operation right across the UK. So all the jobs that we employ, all the investment is in the UK, and that's unique as well. 80% of the product we make here is exported all over the world, all 5 continents. From palaces in Dubai to casinos in Las Vegas to the Ritz Hotel in London to cruise ships. Anybody walking in a top hotel, a casino, a cruise ship, most likely will be walking on an Ulster carpet made here in Portadown, and we're immensely proud of that.
Dougie Beattie, GB News, County Armagh.
Dougie Beattie there. This is On the Money with me, Liam Halligan, on GB News TV, DAB plus digital radio and online, a special celebratory edition of On the Money. After the break, we'll be hearing from the man who set up the Big Jubilee Lunch, an event bringing communities and families together during this special weekend. And we cross over to Leicestershire as Beaver Cordial harvest elderflower for their wonderful soft drink. Stay with us. You're On the Money.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome back. You're on the money. Today, people across the country are, of course, celebrating the Queen's 70th year on the throne, a figure which makes Elizabeth II the UK's longest reigning monarch in history and the third longest reigning monarch in the history of the entire world. To mark this momentous day, street parties and picnics are already underway, of course, including the Big Jubilee Lunch, a 4-day event which encourages neighbours and friends to come together. The initiative started back in 2009, celebrating Queen Elizabeth II's Golden Jubilee, of course, and from then on has become an annual community fixture, with the addition of an extra special lunch for the Queen's Diamond Jubilee in 2012. The Big Lunch is an idea from the Eden Project, which is, of course, a celebrated ecological visitor attraction backed by the National Lottery down in Cornwall. It's also partnered by some commercial backers like Iceland and the Food Warehouse, PG Tips, Nextdoor and the Pears Foundation. I'm delighted to welcome Peter Stewart, who's the Executive Director of the Eden Project, who started the Big Lunch initiative. Peter, great to have you in the studio. I'm a huge fan of the Eden Project. I should just declare that, put that on the table.
Brilliant.
I remember when it started. I'm delighted it's been so successful.
Yep.
So tell us about the Big Lunch, why you started it and what's going on today around the country.
Yeah, thank you. And as you say, Big Lunch started in 2009. And at Eden, we have lots of ideas. And there was one idea that we had back in 2008, 2009 about what would it be like if you could stop the whole of the country for 4 hours and have people sit down and have lunch with their neighbours. So the idea was to say, if you do that, then good things will flow. So the thing about, wouldn't it be great if, if you've got Thanksgiving Day in the States, would this be a moment where people just stop for 4 hours and do that? And so we went for it, and we went for it, and a few thousand people did it. And then, as you say, the Diamond Jubilee came along in 2012. We had conversations with the royal households, and we got involved. And from 2012, it seemed to go in a completely different direction.
And it's an annual thing, right?
And it's an annual thing now.
But obviously it peaks during sort of special royal years.
Absolutely. So, at the moment, so we usually have about 6 to 7 million people participate.
And it's always this time of year, marking Her Majesty's coronation back in 1953.
We've got it in the first weekend in June, and so that coincides.
It's a good time of year because the kids are still at school.
Weather's better.
Weather's a bit better. Yeah. If it was like August, people would be away and so on.
Yeah, people kind of go away, so it kind of works. It kicks the summer off in a really, really in a good time. And you've got all these other sporting events going on. Scotland is important. And in terms of, there's a way that the school holidays break away. So we found that kind of sweet spot in there.
Yeah.
And so, and from that time, it's kind of built social capital on a mass scale. The difference about this weekend that we're in now is that in a normal year, we would have about 7,000 packs that people do. At the moment, as just coming into this studio, we're about, I don't know, 200 or 300 short of 100,000 packs.
So tell us what's in a pack. What's
so in
you
a
say,
pack,
is it
you
bunting?
can download it now, you can, and sometimes people are nervously and about knocking next door and things like that. So it gives you the confidence to be able to do it. So even though the weekend is upon us and there are thousands of things happening, that it's not too late. You can actually reach out to your neighbour across the fence, knock on the door, pull 3 chairs out, have a sandwich, and you're part of the whole thing.
Based on the number of information packs that have been downloaded, how many people do you think are currently sitting down to lunch and will sit down to lunch together over this 4-day long bank holiday weekend due to this initiative?
So we're looking at the numbers and we're saying it feels like 200,000 events, which would equate to somewhere in the region of about 12 million people. Is where we're at, and you've got to think. I mean,
that's like more than 1 in 5 people.
Well, you look at the diamond.
We're like 66 million people, right?
Look at the Diamond Jubilee.
Yeah.
I mean, can you remember the weather? You can talk about it, but the weather was not great on that day. 8.5 million people came out then, 10 years ago. Now there's the whole 70.
I do like lunch and a cagoule.
I think if you're selling cagoules this weekend, I think you're going to do okay. But let's not get put off about that weather. But, you know, it's great.
What have you learnt about your country with this initiative? It's obviously, it comes from a good place.
I think what this, at its essence, it's about bringing people together. And I think what we've learned is that everybody has different views and they care about different things. What the spirit of the Big Lunch is about is celebrating the commonality that we all have through where you actually live. And from that, really, really good things kind of flow, which is why the National Lottery kind of supported it. And I think long term, you know, when you think about the global issues to do with, you know, how the conflicts and everything else, climate change, if you took that, this idea actually brings about more resilient communities and people feel happier and safer. And if you can do that, then you can actually start to take on the massive issues that we all face.
I mean, the community benefits, they seem completely obvious. Some young kids meet their elderly neighbour, get to know him or her. They're going to take their bins out, aren't they? They're going to knock on their door from time to time and see if they're OK. You know, let's just think back to when Elizabeth came to the throne, the 1950s. You know, we're told it was a time... We weren't around, of course. We're told it was a time when everyone knew their neighbours and kids were playing out in the streets, much more community-minded. But since then, of course, the more social media, more cars on the road, maybe streets are more hostile places. Can we regain that sense of community?
I think community, it has changed. I mean, I remember, you know, growing up in the 60s and basically in and out of each other's houses.
Latchkey kids, right?
Yeah, so that was really good. I think what's fantastic now is through the power of these things that we can be connected within a nanosecond anywhere else in the world. That is brilliant. The issue is that we have lost that kind of face-to-face contact.
Yeah, but you can sit next to people who are your neighbours on your phone and not talk to them.
Absolutely. So you've got to... It's almost like this moment that we're talking about over this weekend, it's almost like they've done in the cinemas. Is go in the cinema, just turn your phone off for a second. Use the power of social media to come together. But when you are together, do what we are doing now, you know, and try to understand where the commonality... And those things can be really, really small. And we know through the evidence, through the National Lottery and everything else, that this really, really works. And that's what's special about this moment.
We're often told, and that, you know, with hands on the table, news media often reports, you know, divisions between people, between communities, between people of different backgrounds and ethnicities. These are often the flames of conflict are fanned by social media. What's your sense, having been involved in this fantastic project, of community relations in the UK at the moment? We say we're a very tolerant country. We say we're really good at this kind of, you know, inter-community stuff. Are we?
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. We've lived through a period where it has been angst, you know, coming out of Brexit. And then, you know, one of the things about COVID was that it was a level playing field in terms of it had commonality.
Yeah.
That was not the kind of commonality
you did go shopping for your neighbours, right?
Yeah, but we didn't want that. We wanted, but But I think the essence of the Big Lunch is giving that moment where you can actually celebrate that commonality, that we do have more in common. And yes, we'll always have differences. Yes, it's actually brilliant to be able to air those differences in the right manner. But when we're actually together like that, I think then good things, we provide a fabric on which we can build some really, really good things.
Well, it's been great to have you in the studio here, Peter. People watching GB News on TV have been treated to some lovely picture of some of the lunches that have been going on and are going on now. It strikes me, just putting journalistic objectivity to one side for a second, if I may, it strikes me as fabulous that the National Lottery is funding what you're doing. Yeah. And all the very best.
Thanks, Liam. Thank you.
Peter Stewart there, Executive Director of the Eden Project, the man who started the Big Lunch initiative that's going on across the UK during this long bank holiday weekend and has been going on now for many years and hopefully many years into the future. This is On the Money with me, Liam Halligan, a special celebratory edition of On the Money. Coming up, we'll be talking to the owners of Corgi Cafe. That's right, a cafe filled with corgis to celebrate the run-up to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. We might even see two very special guests in the studio, who knows? But first, it's the GB News headlines with Olivia Guthrie.
Thank you, Liam. It's just coming up to 1:34. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. The Archbishop of York has thanked the Queen for staying the course during a service at St Paul's Cathedral. Members of the royal family, including Prince Charles and Camilla, were joined by dignitaries to honour the Queen and her 70-year reign. Prince William and Kate were also there, along with Prince Harry and Meghan, who appeared with the Windsors for the first time since moving to the States. Her Majesty missed the event after experiencing some discomfort yesterday. She watched the service on television from Windsor Castle. The Archbishop said the Queen was missed.
Your Majesty, we are sorry that you're not here with us this morning, but we are so glad that you are still in the saddle, and we are glad that there is still more to come.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister received a mixed reception on his arrival. Boris Johnson was booed and cheered by the crowds as he approached St Paul's Cathedral with his wife Carrie. It follows a turbulent time for the Prime Minister, who's facing calls to quit after Sue Gray's report into lockdown breaches at Downing Street. In other news, UK intelligence shows Russia now controls more than 90% of Luhansk in eastern Ukraine. On the 100th day of the war, the Ministry of Defence is warning Moscow could have complete control of the region in the next 2 weeks. After abandoning its assault on the capital, Kyiv, Russian forces are now focusing on the east and south of the country. The government here has confirmed it wants to ditch what it's calling overbearing EU rules about imperial measurements. It's launched a consultation which may give traders more freedom to use pounds and ounces instead of kilos and grams when selling goods in future. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound is 1.256 to the dollar and 1.170 to the euro. And the price of gold currently stands at £1,486.04 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for real-time investment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome back. You're on the money for this special celebratory edition. Now, last week I spoke to Leanne Trundley of Belvoir Farm for our in-depth interview series, Money Talks. Belvoir Farm is a classic British brand based in rural Leicestershire that harvests elderflower to make their iconic cordial. Now, we loved the interview with Leanne so much that we sent our East of England reporter, Ed Crawford, up to Leicestershire to find out how Belvoir cordial's prepared for the Platinum Jubilee.
In rural Leicestershire, they're getting ready for a very special occasion. Between May and June is the time that elderflower blossoms and is harvested. Every year, come rain or shine, Pev Manners is out in the fields of Belvoir Farm checking out the yearly yield. This farm is unique in many ways, and most interestingly, they don't employ seasonal pickers. Instead, before the harvest, Pev and the team map out the local area and advertise for casual work elderflower picking. £3 a kilo is quite the incentive, and locals as well as people from around the country flock to the Vale of Belvoir to pick the elderflower during this small harvest. I caught up with Pev in the shadow of Belvoir Castle as the rain closed in to hear why this year is such a special year.
Here we are in our Jubilee plantation with our newly planted trees of elder trees, which are just flowering, just beginning to flower, with our celebratory range of Belvoir Farm elderflower cordial, best of British, and sparkling elderflower, best of British, which we've done to commemorate the Platinum Jubilee in special labels. And they're great fun. They're very celebratory.
So this Jubilee plantation is very impressive. What inspired you to plant these elderflower trees?
The Queen is important to all of us. I think she's a legend and has done the most amazing job for 70 years. So we wanted to commemorate her reign with a plantation, and the Prince of Wales has been putting out a big thing about planting trees for the Jubilee, which is great. So we thought, what better than to plant elderflowers for the Jubilee? So there's 500 new trees gone in here in January. And I think celebrating Jubilees is important. This will be the only Diamond Jubilee, Platinum Jubilee, probably ever, I should think. It's incredible for the same person to be on the throne for 70 years. It's just incredible.
This family-run business has grown from a small kitchen in 1984 to a household name that now exports more than 20 million bottles around the UK and to more than 15 countries around the world. To keep up with demand over the Jubilee weekend, it's all systems go. The elderflower is coming in from the fields and the celebratory range of cordials is in production. From the fields to the British table, at Belvoir Farm they are wishing the Queen and the country a very happy Jubilee. This is Ed Crawford for GB News.
Ed Crawford there on the cordial, pronounced Belvoir, spelt Belvoir. Now, as far back as the 12th century, talented traders have been recognised with a special status so they can do business with the monarchy. What's now known as a royal warrant sets a standard of exceptional quality and dedication in the craft of making anything that the Queen needs, from the shoes she wears, cars she drives, or the cakes she eats. But it's not all about big companies with brand names, as florist Rosemary Mason from Leicester learnt when she was asked to help make the nosegay flower bouquets carried by Her Majesty on Maundy Thursday back in 1984.
My name is Rosemary Mason. My company is Rosemary Hughes, and I'm the supplier to Her Majesty the Queen, supplier of nosegays. One of my staff took a phone call from Buckingham Palace, and you don't get those calls every day. And this is what happened. And he said, would you like to come to the Southwell Minster Maundy service, which was in 1984, and help with the nosegays? So my mum and I were absolutely thrilled to bits. We went along, and we thought it was a one-off because it was Nottinghamshire and we're in Leicestershire. No, here we are. So many years later, 38 years later. This goes back to King John, which was the first recorded Maundy service, and it's all to do with Jesus and the Last Supper, and that runs through the religious side of the monarchy. Well, the original nosegays, or the originality of where it all came from, was that it makes your nose happy. It's a nosegay. And so what happened in, let's say, 1215, when King John was on the throne, they use herbs, which have got aromatic perfume, smells, and also wildflowers. They weren't very big, but they were at least something that could be carried to take away all the smells, the body odour, the streets, etc. And that's where the tradition has arisen. And now the nosegays are, as Queen Elizabeth II has always had hers, the style and the size of them, and they are there for exactly the same reason, but it is as a tradition now, that it's part of what goes with Maundy. When the Queen came to the throne, the very first official engagement she had was to attend the Maundy service, which was not long after she became Queen. And there was nosegays that she would carry, and they had this discussion, whoever was making the nosegays then, about the colours and what flowers they would be chosen. And that colour and the flowers have been consistent all through her reign, exactly the same. The Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall had them this year, and so you've got different people who have, let's say, held your nosegay. I can't describe it. It's one of, when you make the nosegays up on the Wednesday, the day before the Maundy Thursday, I am always on edge inside. There's those butterflies inside that I know that has to be perfect. When I look back how I started as a Saturday girl in a shop, in a career I didn't know very much about, but I wanted to do something with my hands. And where you aspire to, you think, oh, I'd love to do this, I've got this, and I'd like to do this in my career. I've been very, very lucky, because I've had a lot of things that I've done, and you don't realise at the time, when you actually learn your craft skills of floristry, where it can take you. And here we are, supply of nosegays.
Now, everyone knows the Queen loves a corgi. In fact, we're told she's so far owned 30 corgis during the course of her remarkable 70-year reign. Elizabeth II received her first corgi, named Susan, at just 18 years of age. And the dog breed's become almost synonymous with the monarch, as Buckingham Palace are the crown. And as we've been celebrating the Queen's Platinum Jubilee over festive weeks, nothing quite marks the occasion like a Corgi Cafe pop-up. From puppuccinos to pooch-sized photo ops, the Corgi Cafe, located at the refinery in central London, is a perfect place for dogs and their owners to enjoy an ultimate doggy day out. Usually dedicated to pugs, Pop and Bark Cafe changed up its furry offering to corgis in honour of the Queen. And joining me now is James Morgan from Pop and Bark Pug Cafe, and we have two very special guests in the studio, Corgi dog Ken and Corgi dog Sue Barker. No, they're not at the desk. Here they are in the studio by the sofas. These are really wonderful dogs, aren't they? I'm a dog owner. I have 2 dogs. I have a Welsh Terrier and I have a Cocker Spaniel. I've never owned a Corgi. I've never really been around Corgis very much, but they're very, very beautiful.
They're very affectionate and very, very gentle dogs. They've got a bit of a reputation as yappers and nippers, but generally, if you keep them well walked, they're very comfortable and very desirable as a dog.
Now, the one with the Union Jack bandana on screen right, on your left hand, that, I believe, is Sue Barker.
It is, yes, the diva herself.
Named for her yapping rather than after the British tennis player and television presenter.
Well, if Sue is watching, then a little bit of both.
And then Ken is on screen left.
Indeed, Ken named by the kids on a holiday out in Kenya, hence the Ken, and he's a bit more chilled out.
So why do you think Corgis have prevailed so much at Buckingham Palace? What is it about them that you think Her Majesty has really found that's connected with her? They've become synonymous with her. They've become synonymous with the royal family.
I think they're a breed that, little as they are, have huge characters. And I'm sure she enjoys the downtime with these guys because, you know, look at them now. Here they are on TV, but just relaxed.
They are. Never work with children or animals, they say, but it seems to be working out this time. And I guess they're happy living in groups, aren't they? Because we often have seen many pictures over the years of Her Majesty with not just one Corgi, but 2, 3, 4. You know, it's almost like a cartoon cliche, isn't it? You might see a well-dressed elderly lady in an urban park with 5 or 6 Corgis on the end of 5 or 6 leads. They do seem to like to be part of a pack.
Yeah, they love each other, these two. It would be, not cruel, but it wouldn't be right to have one without the other. In the mornings, they always groom each other, and then they go down to the garden for a boxing match. They're up on their hind legs, literally boxing each other.
I think that, has there been, like, are they a really popular breed of dog? Because, of course, they're synonymous with the Queen, but you don't really see them all that often. They're not like Labradors or indeed Cocker Spaniels that you see all the time. Are they quite rare?
They were almost endangered at one stage. And then there was that film a while ago, The Queen's Corgis, that really got things going again for them. But I think they kind of fell out of fashion as they were seen a bit fuddy-duddy, old lady-ish, and this reputation for being a bit yappy and a bit nippy. Well, here we are, proof in the pudding.
Let's go to Pop and Bark, James Morgan. Tell us a little bit about the cafe, James.
So the cafe, we did actually last Sunday, huge success. The Corgis, I mean, a lot and a little, brilliant dogs. They really got in the spirit of things, and as did the owners coming from far and wide across the country. Quite a few people over from the States as well as Japan, actually, visiting us for the day.
And what is it like swapping from pugs, your usual theme, to Corgis? Did you have to take posters down? Do you have to replace some other posters? How did that go?
Well, we're a pop-up, so we don't actually own any premises. We work with some lovely venues. I don't know if anyone's ever been to the Refinery in Bankside, but it's beautiful. We work with many venues. They don't mind us taking control of the place and popping our gear up. It wasn't too bad, really. I mean, much the same sort of thing. A few more Union Jacks and a bit more of a celebratory feeling on the day. But, you know, it was an excellent time to do it, and I think something that will definitely be done again.
I think dogs really bring people together, don't they? I know from being a dog owner myself, you know, if you're walking in the park, you see another dog owner, particularly in the morning, you're always on nodding terms, you're always looking out for you want to make sure that the dogs aren't trying to attack each other. But there's nothing that brings a community together, is there, like pet ownership, particularly dogs? It must be a nice atmosphere in the cafe for that reason.
It really is. It's something particularly special. We initially started up for our dog, who's not a particularly healthy dog. But we thought if we got a second chance at life, we'd really make it one worth living. We noticed when we organised these meetups in the park that there was a huge sort of community feel to it, and something very special. We found like we'd created our own tribe of very special people and dogs. When we brought that inside, that just sort of turbocharged the whole thing. People may not be sort of particularly easy about opening up about themselves, but, you know, great conversation starter. This is my dog. They're beautiful. Easy to talk to, and very powerful being in a room full of 180 people who share the same joy about something. It's honestly, it's a marvelous atmosphere. I recommend everyone come and join or do something like that with your dog, with fellow lovers.
Let's turn back to Ian Middleton in the studio. Have you always been a Corgi man? Do you like other dogs? What is it about this particular breed that's clearly captured your imagination?
We've actually got shrinking ambition. We started with a retriever, then with a beagle, and now we're on the Corgis. I don't quite like Chihuahua next, maybe. But no, we researched, looked into. My son had an obsession, and they are just great dogs to have. I've got to say, James and his Corgi Cafe, that was a superb first time for us. Great way to socialise the dogs.
And James, let's go back to you. Tell us about the Corgi Cafe, how you're expanding the brand. I hear there's interest from maybe in a feature film.
Well, not necessarily a feature film, but what it is, Warner Brothers clocked on to what we were doing over the weekend. They got in contact. They're actually launching a new film in July, and they wanted us to do a series of cafes up and down the country. So definitely keep an hour or two aside for our Corgi friends. But Labradors, we welcome, Cockapoos, French Bulldogs, Pugs, Dachshunds. You know, it's going to be a real celebration of all things dog.
And Ian, it strikes me that, you know, here we are in the aftermath of a pandemic. There was quite a spike in dog ownership during the pandemic, wasn't there?
Yes.
Do you think that's going to be maintained? Do you think as a country we're becoming more interested in dogs than we have been?
I think so. I think perhaps a few people bought them for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
So we've got to be careful there. I personally wouldn't say no to a bit more regulation on dog ownership, because I think sometimes the wrong people or people without the right education and understanding are getting dogs. But overall, it's a fantastic thing. I mean, they're great for therapy. I think we've just seen in the office here, your office was turned into absolute pandemonium when they arrived.
Never has the office been so interested in any episode of On the Money.
I think poor old Dr. David Starkey felt quite left alone as all the entourage rushed to the Corgis. But
what makes Corgi special for you, James Morgan?
A lot in a little. I mean, beautiful dogs, wonderful temperaments. I mean, my partner and I, when we were first going out, one of the memories I have it all was she used to have this Corgi table mat. Now we always thought one day we'll get a Corgi. So I mean, not saying never, but with our boy at the moment, I don't think we're going to be having any additional dogs just with the situation. But definitely on the list. When they smile, it melts your heart.
Well, James Morgan of Pop and Bark, best of luck with the business. A fabulous idea. Brilliant to see that you're embracing the Platinum Jubilee, expressing it entrepreneurially, commercially. All the best to you. And indeed, Ian Middleton and Sue Barker and Ken. There they are.
Woof, woof.
Thanks so much for coming in. It's been absolutely brilliant having you. And I've certainly enjoyed meeting those two wonderful dogs. Lots of you been in touch today on today's show celebrating the Platinum Jubilee. Marianne says the Queen doesn't just increase tourism, bringing much needed finance to our country. She is the very essence of what Britain stands for. She is what unites us, the very core of dignity, loyalty and service. Alexander says, I'm a first-generation British citizen with a Nigerian heritage. My grandmother in Nigeria adores the Queen. Everyone in her village in Nigeria who's not been on a plane all know the royal families. They're all glued to their TV for all events. It's the same across all Nigeria. Keep your emails coming. Tell me what you want to be discussed here on The Money next week and every week. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks for joining me on this special day, Platty Jubes, celebrating the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. But from me, goodbye. Have a fantastic bank holiday weekend. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and that was On The Money.
Well, we're looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking, yep, that's right, showery across Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, northwest England and North Wales this morning. But generally brighter elsewhere. Let's take a look at those details. So by noon, much of the southwest of England will hold on to dry weather, although Cornwall and West Devon we'll have the best of the sunshine with more cloud around further east. So the southeast will also be generally fine, and here there'll be some warm spells of hazy sunshine lifting temperatures into the low 20s. We're going to go over now to Wales, and the showers will affect some parts of northern Wales, but more southern areas could end up mostly dry today, albeit with a fair amount of cloud around. The Midlands now, they will see quite a bit of cloud, and there'll be an increasing chance of 1 or 2 showers breaking out. Nonetheless, it'll be fairly warm. To the northeast now, and in parts of the northeast, England will also have a few showers, and although it will be drier and locally brighter towards the coast, there'll be a cool breeze blowing in off the North Sea. The far east and northeast of Scotland will be rather cloudy and cool, whilst southwestern areas have showers. For central and northwestern areas, though, it's looking fine with some warm sunshine. A few bright spells are likely across Northern Ireland, but there'll also be a scattering of showers, giving a rather changeable theme to the weather here. During the afternoon and early evening, showers will continue in the west. Elsewhere, it will be mainly dry with some sunshine. And that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down